The information shared on this program is for general informational purposes only. It is not intended as legal, tax, investment, or other professional advice, nor as a recommendation of any specific investment product or financial instrument. Always consult your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant regarding your own situation. All client reviews or spotlight segments are unpaid testimonials from current clients of Tony Walker Financial. Individual experiences will vary, are not representative of all clients, and are not a guarantee of future results or success.
Want to know the 3 biggest questions retirees are wanting answers to? Well, stay tuned as we begin a 3-part series, The Top 3 Questions of Savers on Retirement.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money. The Worry-Free Retirement with your host, 6-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In the year of our Lord 2024, Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company conducted a very interesting study uncovering an apparent new discovery on the concerns of savers in retirement, reflecting something I've known and preached for years. The top 3 questions savers need answers to in order to create a worry-free retirement. The first question on savers' mind is this: how will taxes impact me in retirement? Question number 2: how much money will I need to retire comfortably? And finally, question number 3, the big kahuna of all questions: is it possible that I could outlive my savings? And while we at Tony Walker Financial have been answering these questions of savers for years, it appears that surveys such as this one are finally waking up the big financial institutions as to what savers truly need: assurance that they will be okay in retirement. It also is revealing to these financial institutions that the worries of savers are totally different than the worries of investors and speculators, something I covered in my book, The 3 Personalities of Money. In summary, what surveys such as this are confirming is that savers' worries have for years been ignored by the financial world. That is, until the financial world realized that each day more than 10,000 savers are hitting the age of 65 and in desperate need of a game plan that can successfully answer all 3 of these questions. Which is why today, yours truly will spend today taking a deep dive. So let's get started. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I'm that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full-time fiduciary, Tony Walker. So why these 3 questions that are on the hearts and minds of savers? And while the financial world is perplexed as to why savers aren't asking the usual questions, they're hoping savers will ask these types of questions. Where's the best place to invest my money? Which target fund is best for my 401k plan? Or how about this one? Do I need a trust? It is now apparent that while these might be good questions for savers to consider, they are not crucial to a worry-free retirement, something I've learned from my experience in meeting with nearly 20,000 savers over more than 20 years of doing retirement planning. You see, more than 20 years ago, I began the lengthy process of developing something totally new to the financial world called the Worry-Free Retirement, a 5-step process whose aim is simple: to help savers worry less about money by creating a written game plan that they and we can monitor together. A game plan that is simple to understand and includes safety over risk. Since that time, the more than 5,000 written game plans we have created have helped to answer these 3 questions, which is why, when we return, I will take a deep dive into our first question, and that is: what should a saver expect to pay in the way of taxes in retirement, and also the strategies we offer at Tony Walker Financial to help savers deal with what I call the tax tumor. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back.
Here's a Tony Walker Financial 5-star review from Thomas Gant. I met Tony years ago when I needed help after going on disability. He was honest, clear, and patient from the start. Today, we enjoy reliable mailbox money untouched by market swings. Tony shows everything in writing. You'll feel confident, not nervous. To read this full review and more 5-star reviews like it, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire, and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number at 877-499-9255. Of all the questions I have received since focusing on retirement planning more than 20 years ago, and as I continue to meet in person with 20 to 30 savers a week, these three questions, which are worth repeating both today and for the next 2 weeks on this show, are certainly the most important questions that savers must have answers to if those same savers expect to be worry-free in retirement. I mean, let's face it, if you are retired or thinking of retiring soon, how in the world can you sleep at night not having an understanding of how much Uncle Sam will take in the way of taxes from your 401k or other taxable assets? How can you get a good night's sleep not knowing if you truly have enough money to comfortably retire? And then finally, the frightening prospects that everybody worries about, and that is literally one day running out of money. Today, we are focusing on the first question: how will taxes impact your retirement? Now, this question is especially important for savers, those savers who currently have much of their life savings buried inside those pre-tax savings accounts such as 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, or IRAs, because as you might now have learned by now, the lowest tax rates in the history of this country are right now, which means the money you will owe in taxes when you go to take this money out of these plans at some point could be, I say could be, much higher in the future than they are right now, which begs the question, what are you going to do about it? Do you have in your corner an independent retirement planning firm who understands tax laws and how to use financial products and strategies to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket? Well, rather than sitting around and hoping for the best, let me take a few minutes to explain the options we use at Tony Walker Financial to help our clients in planning for taxes in retirement. And again, folks, these may or may not be right for you, but they are options you should at least consider. All right, the first thing is something I refer to as a spend-down strategy. Now, most of the financial world really don't understand this or understand why in the world people would want to spend their assets, and I'll tell you why. The financial world is rewarded by you not spending your money. So it begs the question, why are you stockpiling all of this money for the future with no plans to spend it, knowing that, number one, the fees are going to eat away at it, and then number two, the taxes are just going to grow as the account grows? This is a strategy I outline in my book, Live Well, Die Broke. It's unique to the financial world and something most in the financial world either don't understand or, again, would rather not talk about it. Something I talk about again and remind people is you don't want to wait too long to spend this money. Number two would be something called a Roth conversion, which we've covered in extensive detail on this show. Warning shot over the bow. Everybody's pushing Roth conversions. Really something you want to take a look at, but be very careful on Roth conversions. Number three, RMDs, required minimum distributions. A lot of planning strategies that we bring to the table that, again, a lot in the financial world do not understand how best to use the RMD strategies. Number four, something called qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs. A wonderful way to keep money off your tax return, assuming you give a lot of money to charity anyway and you're over the age of 70 and a half. Again, we can help you think through if this is a good strategy for you. And finally, my favorite, gifting now versus waiting until after you croak. Folks, this makes no sense. Again, yeah, our grandparents kept a lot of money and they were afraid to spend it. Well, that's because they came out of the Depression and they didn't have all these tax-infested 401ks, but you do. So I'm just telling you, again, pick up a copy of Live Well, Die Broke. You need to have a strategy in place to start gifting money now versus trying to leave it when you die, because the tax tumor is just going to get passed right off to your kids. So how do you know which of these strategies is right for you? Well, there's only one way to know, and that's to have a free game plan set up where you and I will talk in person to determine if any of these strategies could help you lower your taxes on your retirement account. So do this right now. Take advantage of something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, where you and I will talk briefly to see if we can help. And if we can help, we're going to set up that no-obligation appointment to meet in person. at either our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky offices. So log on now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back.
Looking for retirement guidance from a local team you can trust? Subscribe to the Tony Walker Financial YouTube channel for fresh weekly videos focused on the topics that matter most to savers and retirees. Once subscribed, click the bell so you're notified whenever new videos are uploaded. Then head to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to submit your own questions to Tony or schedule your free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with Tony himself. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, your local trusted resource for retirement planning.
Our Tony Walker Financial Client Spotlight today focuses brightly on Keith and Linda Abrams.
Well, her and I were high school sweethearts. So right out of high school, we got married. She was 20, I was 21, and I had to go get a real job. I moved all over the country, going for the next job, the next raise, the next position, and I was meant for something else. You know, there's something bigger, something out there, and I need to go for that. Then God got a hold of me. I got saved at 36 and totally changed everything. And that's when we met Tony. And then he must have, I don't know if God prompted him or if he just felt something, but he says, "What do you really want to do?" But I can remember thinking, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm doing it. I'm there. I'm the man in that company. I'm making six figures. I've got it licked. But then he said, "No, really, what do you want to do with your life?" I said, "I want to be full-time ministry." We had a big house in Oldham County. I had a payment on my Jeep still. When we went full-time ministry, I took an 85% pay cut. We bought a house in Frankfurt. We put money in the bank. I mean, on paper, it should have never worked, you know?
But he was just preparing and getting us ready for this next part of our life, so.
There's some pieces of life that's about the money, but that never brings you happiness or joy. It's, now it's knowing that I'm in God's will, I'm doing what he wants me to do, and I love my life.
We live a simple life, and we trust God, and he gets all the credit and all the glory for our life, and we're thankful for that.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Back in the worry-free studios with Mr. Wes Walker, fellow fiduciary in Louisville. How you doing there, Wes?
Good, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Last time on the show, we talked about ChatGPT. Now we're kind of moving forward a little bit, and we certainly don't use ChatGPT or other large language models to help us design portfolios for our clients. But as we record this particular episode, it's near the end of March 2026. Market's down in the last 30 days, 5 to 10%, depending on where you are. It's pretty volatile right now. Let's first address the idea of people who are clients. We had a client in the other day and said, by the way, what are you all doing during these markets? Are you moving in and out of the market? Are you trying to figure out when to get back in? What was your response to that particular gentleman?
Yeah, so our firm's policy is largely based around the idea that you should only have as much stock market exposure to begin with that you're comfortable with. And that will prevent you from taking these big downturns, large drawdowns in your accounts that you really can't stomach. Anybody, and I mean anybody, who tells you that they can time when to get into equities, when to get out, when to shift into different sectors, they're either selling you something or they just have too much confidence in themselves. There's people who can do it, but if you think that, as just a person off the street with a retail advisory account, that person's going to really be able to time markets for you, it's a fallacy, quite frankly. And people charge high fees in order to try and do it. There's been a few very successful hedge fund managers, Ray Dalio, there's others too, but those people are not accepting new clients. And you might have an account.
Where's his phone number? No, I'm
just
teasing.
You might have an account minimum of $10 million to get in too, and it's a 3-year wait to get on the list. So wow. I promise you, the guy down the street, working out of a strip mall is not going to be able to time the market correctly. So that's our stance.
So let's talk about that. So somebody comes in with $1 million 401k. We go through an analysis. We end up putting 30% of the money with Schwab. We might even divide that into two buckets. We might choose our growth strategy and our conservative strategy. Go back to that original placement of those funds. Why do we do that? And go back to avoid the market timing, obviously, but explain how we would monitor that progress.
Sure. So this is kind of a bucketing strategy. And the reason we've got two different accounts out there, let's say one is for near-term withdrawals. We're going to take money out over the next few years. We don't want to position that money very aggressively because if the market does see a downturn, we don't want to be withdrawing from an account that's down. So that might be a very conservatively portioned amount of money.
May not even have any money in the stock market, possibly, right?
Depending on the person, yeah, we might not have any money in the market at all. But then that other bucket, this is where this person's time horizon is a lot longer. There is a premium that you get from owning stocks for long periods. So, in a 10-year rolling window, just the S&P 500 has never seen a negative decline. So if you hold stocks long enough, you will get rewarded for taking those risks. So that's what we've done in this instance. We might have carved out some money for a short-term withdrawal strategy in a very low volatility account, whereas we've carved out another pot of money that we say, okay, even if markets get rocky, it may lose value, but over the long term, we're planning on holding this. So it's going to hopefully grow in value. And then again, that's why we'd like to have that person in our corner or have us in his corner so that he could call in and say, hey, I'm not really feeling comfortable about markets. We could remind him, this bucket of money we're not touching for 15 years. Let's do our best to try and hang in there and let it come back. Whereas this other pot of money, you'll notice it might be off a couple percent or something, but it hasn't taken a huge hit to where now we can't make withdrawals from it.
And then speak to that. So if somebody does say, well, Wes, that sounds good. I know I chose the growth strategy. I'm not comfortable in growth anymore. I know you said it's a 10-year time horizon. Do we fight and scratch and tell them to stay there? What is our approach to them if somebody comes to us and says, I want out of the market?
Ultimately, this is this person's money. I mean, at the end of the day, this is their money. They worked for it. They can make their own decisions with it. We can give them guidance and say, hey, I wouldn't do that, might recommend something different. But if they want to move to a different strategy, there's no costs, there's no fees to do so. We'll help estimate taxes if that comes into play, if it's a non-qualified account. But we might remind that person in the future that if they say, okay, well, now I'm feeling better about markets. Hey, you jumped out 2 years ago because you got scared. Are you really wanting to go back into that? So I think that's where if you've got someone who knows you, knows your situation well, and can help analyze and make decisions with you, that's the value you get for what I think is a pretty low cost relative to the rest of the financial industry.
Besides running out of money, one of the greatest concerns of savers right now is this. It's called tax bracket creep. The more you make, the more they, that's Uncle Sam, will take. Now notice something here, that this tax bracket creep starts at 10 and 12% taxes. Now that's a very low rate. In fact, the next creep up is to 22, then 24. It takes a lot of money to get up to the 32% bracket. Now, what will Congress do with these rates? Well, they could go in and keep them. They could lower them. They could raise them. So the point is, folks, if you ask me, as somebody that's been doing this for 40 years, they have got to raise the taxes to help cover the deficits. So what we mean by this tax bracket creep is now is the time to take action. If you have a 401k, an IRA, and you haven't dealt with what I call the tax tumor, and we at Tony Walker Financial are well equipped to help you deal with them. So that's you right now. If you don't have a game plan to deal with the taxes, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button. You have nothing to lose. The consultation is absolutely free, and we'll be happy to see if we can assist you by lowering taxes and keeping more money in your pocket.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Do you have a 401k, IRA, 403b, thrift savings account, or lump sum pension that you'd like to move to safer territory? Did you know that all the money you see on your 401k statement isn't really yours? Depending on your overall taxable income, the government has essentially a lien on your 401k that can tax as much as 40% of your money when you go to take it out. Tony Walker calls this the 401k tax tumor. For over 40 years, retirement specialist Tony Walker has helped thousands of savers worry less about money by creating game plans to deal with your tax tumor. Get control of your retirement by controlling the taxes owed on it. Schedule a free meeting to see if you can reduce your tax tumor and provide a guaranteed income you can never outlive. To get started, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Do you have questions about retirement and your financial future? Well, it's time to talk to Tony.
You know, a lot of people wonder about the big, beautiful bill that was just passed, and people saying, well, Social Security is never taxed. Again, folks, Social Security is a really unique element of retirement planning. Depending on your other income, it doesn't matter with Social Security. It can be taxed. Now, in some cases, if you have no other additional income and you're drawing Social Security, in most cases, there are no taxes on Social Security. So here's the biggest problem I see. Most of the clients we work with have large 401ks or IRAs that have not been taxed. And they just keep putting off the pain because they don't want to pay the taxes, so it just keeps growing, which on the surface sounds wise, but it's not, because here's what's going to happen. As you draw money out of these tax-infested plans, more than likely it's going to increase the taxes on your Social Security. So to find out ways to minimize taxes on your Social Security along with your other retirement assets, why don't you do this? Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. We'll be happy to try to help you reduce taxes on your Social Security.
To talk to Tony, visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com or send an email to asktony@TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is a book I wrote several years ago called Live Well, Die Broke. Now, first of all, let's address the end of that title, which is Die Broke. And I know for many people this sounds like a strange title for someone coming from the financial world who advises people on retirement planning. In fact, as we record this in March of 2026, I'm coming up on my 42nd year in this business. I've met in person with more than 20,000 savers. I've orchestrated and overseen more than 5,000 game plans. We have nearly 4,000 clients. We oversee more than $1.1 billion of clients' money. So again, you might be saying, Tony, what's up with this Live Well, Die Broke? So basically, this has a lot to do with the experience I've seen in working with so many savers, but also from a biblical standpoint, the idea, the reality that I've learned over the years in watching so many clients pass away is, as they always say, you can't take it with you, which is a huge problem with the financial world because the financial world's message has always been the idea of stockpiling money because you might need all this money in the future. And that's not what I've seen at all. In fact, in 2025, we had 44 death claims alone. Those people will never get to spend another dime again. So all of the plans they had for the future, it's null and void. Just like it says in Ecclesiastes, it's all vanity. So what we try to do at Tony Walker Financial is help people gain a better perspective of now, live well now, enjoy the money, but then also build a game plan around this philosophy to make sure that they use and enjoy the money, but also without the fear of one day running out. It's an unusual philosophy, but it works wonders for savers because that's really what they want. Now, a lot of this book, and we're going to try to, over the next several episodes, maybe take in a chapter of each radio show and just cover a chapter just briefly, but a lot of this book hinges upon the philosophy and the lifestyle of my granddad, Bill Harden, who in 1978 retired from Bell South. Now, why is this important to bring in my granddad? Well, first of all, at a young age, my parents had divorced, so I spent a lot of time with Granddad and his wife Hazel down in the little sleepy town of Troy, Kentucky. And I was there from about 7 years of age and then spent a lot of time all the way up into college age. Actually, I'd go down there and just hang out in Troy with Granddad. So when he retired in 1978, I was 18. Never been around anybody that retired, knew nothing about retirement, couldn't figure out how this guy just stopped working all of a sudden, but he did. And here was the key. Everything back then, when you think about it, for employees was set up to stop working. The employer provided something called a pension. Now, this is important to hang on to what I'm getting ready to say because it explains what's going on now with so many of you afraid to spend this money that you've worked so hard to save. So when you think about it, when Granddad retired, he was forced to spend money. And you say, what are you talking about, Tony? He got a pension. So this pension, which was roughly back then $750 a month, came every month, and it was guaranteed to come to he and or Hazel as long as they would live. It was called a pension. He called it mailbox money. So when you think about a pension is spending both interest and principal, and what the employer was doing was taking the risk off the table that Granddad's going to spend all his money because it was impossible to do so. So about that same time, it's ironic that in 1978, that's when Congress came up with the idea of the 401k plan, which began the slow evolution of replacing these pensions with non-guaranteed, non-mailbox 401k plans. So you see the dilemma. So now that generation of pension goers, for the most part, is gone. A few people still have pensions. But now what we do in our practice, we have all of these savers come to us with these darn 401k plans and all of these problems that granddad never had. Number one, granddad never had to have a financial advisor because he had his pension. He never had to worry about taxes. He didn't have to worry about Medicare premiums and IRMA and worried about running out of money. All these things that you current savers out there, I know, are worried about. So Live Well, Die Broke is an excellent book for you to read if you're thinking about working with someone like Tony Walker Financial. Why? Because you need to buy into this philosophy. You need to understand that what we're trying to do is we want to help you use and enjoy this money. The financial world's going to tell you the opposite. Why? Because if you don't take this money from them, that's more money for them to make money on your money. It falls into the trap of just letting money accumulate, building bigger barns, and then one day you're going to croak and never enjoy this money. That's not a plan at all, folks. So here's what I would recommend doing. Not only can you talk to us about our services by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, set up a free phone call with me, you can also listen to the audio version of Live Well, Die Broke. It's absolutely free. You can do that. You could also go to your favorite bookstore or go online and order the book. Again, it's called Live Well, Die Broke. I would encourage you to do that. Spend a couple of bucks on it. Spend a little time because let's face it, you're probably going to make one of the biggest financial decisions you've ever made in your life, and that's who are you going to trust with your life savings. So before you do that, I would think you'd want to know the philosophy and the morals and the values behind the advisor you're getting ready to work with. So if that's you, if you're retired or retiring soon, maybe you got an old 401k that you want to move to a local independent firm that cares more about you than they care about your money, let's talk. Just log on right now, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255.
Here are more Tony Walker Financial 5-star reviews. This one from David Garriott. Very positive and informative. Everyone is professional and always willing to answer all questions. And Mark Manley says, Tony's team is easy to work with. They made the transition from another advisor to Tony Walker Financial seamless. To read these and more 5-star reviews, visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Funny, every 4 years, politicians start talking about paying our fair share, whatever that means. What that really means in layman's terms is this: the more you make, the more they take. And since taxes are based on man-made laws, it should stand to reason, as law-abiding citizens, that it might be wise to first understand the laws to see how we can keep from paying more than our fair share. It's like the late, great Judge Learned Hand once stated, the law does not require one to pay more in taxes than the law requires. Unfortunately, since most savers and well-meaning Christians do not know the tax laws, they usually just pay whatever they're told to pay, but that's not what the Bible says to do. In fact, in Luke 16:8, it says that Christians are to be shrewd in the matter of dealing with money, which is a nice way of saying that if you're going to play the game, you better know the rules. And if we are following the rules, we can save on taxes, that is, if we know the laws, which is where we come in at Tony Walker Financial. You see, at Tony Walker Financial, our trained staff, which includes 2 certified tax planning specialists, is there to assist our clients in maximizing their income by doing our best to take advantage of the current tax laws by keeping more of our clients' money in their pockets. So if you feel like you're in the dark as to how to reduce the taxes you will owe on that tax-infested 401k plan of yours, let's talk. And we've made this so easy to do, and best of all, there's absolutely no cost or obligation to you. We call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how easy it is for you and I to talk about your situation. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and click on that Let's Get Started button. That information will be confidentially sent to our offices, and we will follow up immediately with a phone call. Then, after the phone call, if it looks like we can be of help, we're going to meet again at no cost or obligation. That's right, with yours truly, the owner of the company. We're going to meet in person at either our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or you can call us 24/7 at this toll-free number, 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. Remember, part 2 of our series coming up next week. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.